go, folks. We're talking about the rest of the Mexican-American War. Now, it was an interesting thing this weekend. I was at home and I decided, yeah, I'll get the slides ready for the next couple of presentations. So I tried to sign on. Yeah, that wasn't going to work. So I actually went and got another computer, which was also go through VA, and yeah, that wasn't going to work. So I got stuff straightened out this morning when one of the tech people came in, but I had to erase, and it ended up being, your first step towards taking your own notes, because I didn't have enough time to put all the details in here. So don't go into a panic. If you have done the right thing and you have copied the notes down, you're just filling in some ideas. Very few. You should just be supplementing, turning my notes into your notes. Okay, just to refresh you again. The U.S. said, hey, maybe we want to sell California because Santa Ana's gone and we're kind of falling apart here. We could use the cash inflow. But by the time the American negotiators get down there, Santa Ana has returned. He says, there's no way I'm losing California. Last time I lost Texas, they kicked me out. Then James Polk, the president of the United States, had sent this man, John Fremont, down to California, overland. He said, yeah, I want you to go see, how easy it is traveling what's out there right along near California. And Fremont came down into what was clearly Mexican Texas. There are no negotiations going on for the United States to buy it, although Fremont didn't know that. So the Mexicans are obviously very angry. The Americans have already feel like they've been snubbed. They're angry. Both sides are kind of working on emotion. That's not a good thing to have happen. So, this John Fremont, hey buddy, did you say, thanks buddy. Okay, John Fremont, he's the son of an important American politician, so the Mexicans have just booted him out of California. He comes back with the idea of having a revolution in California, kind of like what the Texans did, where they had the Lone Star Republic, and then they broke off from Mexico, and then asked the United States if they could join. This is what John C. Fremont calls the Bear Flag Republic. They want to break California off from Mexico and do the same thing, ask the United States if they may please join the country. Remember, there was a disputed area down near the border of Texas. After Texas became independent, the Texans, and therefore now the Americans, because Texas has become part of the United States, say that what was agreed to was that the border between Mexico and the United States would be this more southern river, the Rio Grande. The Mexicans said, no, what we agreed to was the more northern river, the Nueces. And so they dispute this area and some further land a little to the west. And both sides claim this. Get that, incidentally? The idea of why you can tell who won was not because today this border, I said it was what we were talking about there. And can anybody show me Rio Nueces? No. How about the Grande River? No. Rio Grande is called Rio because it's down next to Mexico. It's in Mexico. And then Nueces River is called River because it's up in the United States, an English-speaking country. All right, cool. General Zachary Taylor is sent down by President Polk to reinforce the border. Now, Zachary Taylor, he's kind of a rough-looking guy. He's sort of looked like he always slept in his clothes. And as a matter of fact, that was his nickname, Old Rough and Ready. Well, Zachary Taylor went down to, when he's ordered to reinforce the border, he went down to the Rio Grande. From the American point of view, Zachary Taylor is reinforcing the border. But from the Mexican point of view, what's happening? Got it.
Invading army?
The United States has just invaded Mexico because they say, no, this is our land and your army is clearly down in what we feel is Mexico. So the 2 points of view are very, very important here because the Americans say, no, we're just reinforcing the border. The Mexicans say, no, you invaded our country with an army. Zachary Taylor, he has kind of made it be known that he might like to be president. And Zachary Taylor, well, he does want to be president. Matter of fact, he will be before too terribly long. Zachary Taylor, since he sent out these feelers of maybe I'll run for office, President Polk doesn't want him as an opponent. We do not belong to the same political party. So President Polk says, yeah, I'm not really interested in making this guy into a war hero, because traditionally war heroes have done very, very well in running for president. Anybody name a general who was president? Another one? Andrew Jackson? William Henry Harrison? Okay, Dwight Eisenhower? There are all kinds of them who came up and they made their name in the military. Incidentally, this is really, really, really important. You guys know that the President of the United States can never be in the military, any branch. That's really important to our country's functioning, is that the military works for the civilian elected government. So that somebody like Zachary Taylor, if he's going to become president, must resign from the military. The military is never in charge of our country. It has to be a civilian who orders the military what to do. Anyway, Zachary Taylor came down into the border, and of course, gunfire was exchanged. Now we're in a real live war with Mexico. And Fremont and his Californians helped the United States Navy take Los Angeles. I've never seen a Saturday Night Live routine, but that's kind of what I think of for Californians too. So the United States is right away grabbing a little piece of California there. Zachary Taylor comes down. Yes, sir.
Can you go back?
Trying to copy the picture.
Both.
Okay, good. All right, Zachary Taylor comes down into Mexico, and he does end up fighting a battle at a place called Buena Vista. And so he does end up becoming a war hero in the Mexican-American War. Now, here's what happened. The plan, all right. You know, it dawns on me. I don't think I could write on this board. I gotta have a little pen thing or anything. No, a few people do it. I can do it with my finger.
Yeah.
All right, how do we turn it on?
There's an arrow at the very
Okay.
No, press the yellow one.
Going for yellow. Thank you, because my eyes are terrible.
It's the red thing with your thumb.
Okay.
Now draw, right.
Now what?
Now just straight.
All right, cool. Okay, listen up. Zachary Taylor had come down into Mexico. President Polk did not want him to become a war hero. So what he did was he said, I want you to send all of your troops, except maybe a couple of hundred. I want you to send all the rest of them over here under the command of Winfield Scott. Remember the guy who had moved to Cherokee on the Trail of Tears? I told you he was a major American general between the War of 1812 and the Civil War. Well, this is his biggest moment. So Winfield Scott, he's supposed to get all of Zachary Taylor's army, but Zachary Taylor does want to be a war hero. So he simply ignores the president's orders and keeps his army. Now, it's an interesting thing. The way they used to send orders, of course, was by writing, because they didn't have any electronic means. So by writing, they read out letters, here are your orders, but of course they couldn't send just one because there was no guarantee it would get through. So they sent a number of copies. Well, one of those copies fell into the hands of the Mexican army. And Santa Anna said, oh, this is fantastic. Because he found out the plan was for Winfield Scott to come down here and attack the coast of Mexico and march over and attack Mexico City. So when Santa Anna said, yeah, but you know what? I am instead, while they're trying to get their stuff together, there's only a few hundred guys here with Zachary Taylor. I'm going to take my army and bust through and I'm going to bring the Mexican army up here into the United States. I'll go attack Houston, maybe New Orleans, maybe I'll get over a little bit further, and the Americans will pull back. Instead of attacking Mexico, they'll come back and defend their homeland. So we'll go fight the war in the United States, damage their property, cost them a lot more lives and more property. It seemed like a very good plan. However, Zachary Taylor simply ignored the president's orders. He still had his army, and Zachary Taylor was a much better general than Santa Anna was. And so Santa Anna was defeated at Buena Vista and retreated back down to Mexico City. Is the little broom thing, is that the eraser on this?
Yes.
Oh, look at that, the whole thing. Isn't that peachy?
And then you put the X. Put the X.
That's it. Now he's back over here. 59, thank you again. All right, cool. So you understand what happened with Buena Vista. Now comes Winfield Scott at Veracruz. Winfield Scott eventually says, I'm not waiting for Zachary Taylor's army anymore. I am going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and do my attack. And so Winfield Scott gets his ship, and he does sail his army down to Veracruz. He wins a victory there, gets a foothold in Mexico, and starts his march over to Mexico City. Now, this is really important. This is taking place in the 1840s. The American Civil War happened in the 1860s. A huge number. Historians now estimate about 1 million people died in the Civil War, maybe a little bit more. An enormous number of people died. This is where they learned how to fight. Winfield Scott was an excellent training general, and he had all kinds of very famous generals that would come to the next war, like Sherman and Grant and Lee and Stonewall Jackson, people from both sides. Matter of fact, Jefferson Davis, who would become president of the Confederacy, was in there. All those people learned how to fight working for Winfield Scott in the Mexican-American War. And 15, 18 years later, when the Civil War came around, they were very good at killing each other. All right. Is there a way to make this fatter?
No, I think that's highlighter.
Oh, no, wait, do it now, do it now.
Do what?
Do what you're doing now.
Yeah, it's a highlighter.
Okay. All right, we'll go back to this. Good. All right. I mean, does it matter if I get my finger fat or no?
I mean, maybe you could try like,
There's like a green button. What is that?
That's okay. That's all right. We'll figure it out. Okay. So here goes Winfield Scott. His army has landed. He's heading towards Mexico City. The Americans come to a place called Chapultepec. And Chapultepec is like their West Point. It's the school where their future army officers are trained. But remember, I told you this before, ages were a little different. This is their military college, but people didn't enter colleges at 18 or 19 years of age like they do now. People got out of colleges at 16, 17, 18, and frankly, as military officers, they'd go get experience. Lots of them would be out the door at 15 and 16. So these are young men. The Americans came and they decided, the Mexican cadets decided they would hold off the American army. The American army is now battle tested. These are full grown guys who have now been in wars and battles, and out come the cadets. All right, let's face this. I love kids. I adore kids. You guys are like the most wonderful thing in the world to me. But if Talal comes at me with a gun, I will blow Talal from here to Christmas. Okay? Because I don't particularly want to die. So he will quickly be a past tense Talal. Now, here come the cadets. They attack the American army. They don't do well. The Americans win the Battle of Chapultepec. This monument over here is for a group of 6 young men in the Mexican Academy called Los Niños Heros. in Mexico, and this is the reason sometimes some of the older families have harsh feelings towards Americans. Understand, General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna was not just the president, not just the dictator, he was a general. So if your family wanted to impress Santa Anna, then your Mexican family would put your son into Chapultepec, into the army, so that they were showing the Presidente what they thought of him, that he was this great man. And so these were not just ordinary anybody kids. These are the kids of the richest, most politically powerful, most influential families of Mexico. Winfield Scott went on to Mexico City, and he did capture Mexico City, and he did capture General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. And Winfield Scott was a student of history. He had looked at what had happened in previous engagements that Santa Anna was involved in. He looked mostly at the Texas War for Independence, where Santa Anna had signed a treaty saying he would agree to Texas independence and he would not come back and try to take it and where the border was. And he said, you know, we have some confusion here because you immediately talked about coming back and trying to retake Texas and you're telling us the border was someplace else. So we're going to negotiate a treaty, you and I. And then when we've got this thing agreed to, what's going to happen is we're going to wait here. The Army is going to wait here as your guest in Mexico, which means an occupying force in Mexico City. We're going to wait here until you, the president of Mexico, sign it, and the president of the United States signs it, and the Senate of the United States accepts it, and the Senate of Mexico accepts it. When everybody said, now we all agree to this, then the American Army will leave. The treaty was the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. And you can see over there, the United States said, okay, we're going to go ahead and buy that land you'd offered to sell. We'll make that part of the negotiation. This area in pink, the United States is, yeah, we'll take that and we'll pay you $15 million for it. You know what, they actually paid 15 for Louisiana, so that must be the going price for enormous chunks of the West. We'll pay you $15 million for it. Yes, sir.
How much would 15 million back then?
It's so hard to transpose from that long ago because people had different needs and purchased different things. You know, now you get a car, then they got a horse. You know, so it's so hard to say. It was an enormous amount of money. I mean, the Civil War in the 1860s that cost the North as much as $1 million a day. I think I told you guys a mad minute where now you can have 100 soldiers fire fast for a minute and it costs $1 million. Just 100 guys. So, I mean, things have changed just drastically. Yes, sir. Yeah. I'm not sure we played that much, but you know, it was a lot of money. Yeah. I mean, even there's so many things to compare it to. You know, when I was a kid, there was an ad for McDonald's. You know, you can buy a hamburger, fries, and a small soft drink and get something else. Change back from your dollar. You know, so that's when I was alive. That's when I was a kid. You know, so yeah, the prices have gone up hugely. Okay, this last little bit right here kind of looks brown or orange, burnt sienna, whatever you want to call it. This is called the Gadsden Purchase. It was negotiated a few years later. The United States decided, yeah, there's just another little piece there that seems to have a lot of Americans in it. We were kind of looking to get down there. And so they negotiated with Mexico and purchased that for $10 million additional dollars. So we paid 15 for what's in pink and 10 million for what's in orange. And when that happened, the 48 contiguous United States were as big as they are today. After the Gadsden Purchase, than what we own now. There's no place that we've extended. Yeah.
When do we buy Florida off the Spanish?
We bought it during, let's see here, I think Jackson. All right. Ready? Boom. We got Alaska not long ago from the Russians. That was in the 1900s. Okay. So, the Americans, we got everything signed up. They're going to leave Mexico City. And so they're going to march back the same way. They're going to go past Chipotle, back out to Veracruz, be picked up by their ships, and sail back up to the United States. And when they go, General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna gets on his horse, and as the Americans are loading up the last few ships, he is riding along on his horse, cussing them out, threatening them, say they better never come back. They're so lucky he let them go this time. One of the sailors on board one of the ships says, I'm so sick of this guy. I'm just so sick of listening to him cuss us out. Without orders, he simply takes the signal cannon, okay, which is just a little tiny cannon just meant to shoot a charge to get the attention of other ships so they could see if you're sending a signal. Just takes the signal cannon and aims it over there at Santa Ana, lights it on up, and boom! Blows his left leg off. So Santa Ana loses his left leg, and the Americans sail off. Santa Ana, he's pretty seriously wounded. And just a few months later, there is a state funeral in Mexico City. It is attended by all of the representatives of all of the South American countries and many other countries from around the world. It's full military honors. They have the bands, they have the soldiers in parade. Everybody's there. Santa Ana's there because he was burying his leg with full military honors. Okay. Hey, when you're a dictator, you can do stuff like this. That's his fake leg that he wore afterwards. It's very near where his tomb is. Okay. Then you have the whole thing put together. Remember? You have all the way out to the Mississippi. We got from the British. There's a little argument over that. That was settled after the War of 1812. We did get Spanish. Here you go. 1819 from Florida from the Spanish in 1819. You've got the Louisiana Purchase. Texas comes in. We get Oregon. Britain gives that up. You've got the Mexican Cession, which is after the Mexican-American War, and then the Gadsden Purchase a little bit later. And then you have what we have today. Okay, cool. You got it? In that case, come on, you can do it. Why are you the last thing? Okay, well, I did put in one more slide. I'm not sure where it went, but I'm confused by this, but with the Oregon Trail tournament, I got like 3 people that did it by Saturday night, so I'm just extending it until 9 o'clock tonight for the second round. So you have until 9 o'clock tonight to send in if you are in the second round. Remember that I did post on the Google Classroom the brackets, so they're up there. You can tell whether or not you're supposed to be doing it or not, or if you've been eliminated. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. What? Why? There you go. Okay, cool. Anything else? Yes, sir.
What part of Louisiana is Rebel?
Well, we don't have a great down there. This was owned by Spain for a bit longer. We got it from Spain, not from Mexico. Okay? That's part of this deal. 1819 same thing. Okay? Any other questions? You may